Hello everyone, I wish you peace and happiness. Are you all healthy? Today, I will continue to tell you about the difficult, scarce and challenging days of Huyen and her daughter. In the morning, gentle rays of sunlight seep through the thatched roof of the small house, illuminating the yard still lingering with mist. Huyen sits on an old bamboo chair, gently using a comb to brush Micah and Appo's soft hair. She carefully parts the hair into two sides and skillfully ties two neat braids with pink rubber bands. Micah sits obediently, smiling as she looks at her mother through an old small mirror. After tying her hair, Huyen smooths a few strands of hair on her daughter and Appo's forehead, smiles kindly, and gently kisses Micah on the cheek. In the simple house, the peaceful moment shared by mother and daughter makes the morning feel warm and full of love. Huyen stepped into the small kitchen corner. She gathered the dry firewood sticks she had prepared the day before, neatly stacked them, and lit a fire. Soon the flickering flames burned brightly, spreading warmth throughout the kitchen. Huyen took a scoop filled with water from a large jar, poured it into the pot, and carefully placed the pot on the wood stove. She gently added a few small sticks of firewood, sat to fan the stove to keep the fire burning evenly, and waited for the water to boil for her and her mother to use in the morning. Micah carried a small bamboo basket and ran quickly to the backyard garden. Seeing her mother also follow, the girl happily sat down beside the lush water spinach bed. Huyen gently bent over and plucked each tender sprout, while Micah used her tiny hands to carefully pick the stalks within reach and put them into the basket. Mother and daughter worked together and chatted, Micah and Appo's clear laughter blending with the morning birdsong, making the small garden warm and peaceful. Before long, the bamboo basket was filled with fresh green water spinach. Huyen smiled at her daughter and then, with Micah, carried the basket of vegetables back into the house to prepare breakfast. Micah sat beside a basin of water, carefully washing each stalk of water spinach, and then draining them in a bamboo basket. In the kitchen, a pot of water on the wood stove was boiling vigorously. Huyen gently dropped a bunch of water spinach into the pot, using a bamboo chopstick to stir evenly until the vegetables turned bright green. Then she peeled open a packet of instant noodles, added the noodles to the boiling water, and continued to stir gently so the noodles softened and blended with the vegetables. The aroma of hot water spinach noodles quickly filled the small kitchen, signaling a simple yet warm breakfast for mother and daughter. The noodles are cooked. Huyen gently lifts the pot, and then places the hot bowl of noodles on the small bamboo table in front of the house. The steam rises, carrying the aroma of water spinach and instant noodles. Huyen takes two bowls, carefully scoops a generous portion of noodles into each, and places them in front of Micah. The girl happily sits at the table, holding the warm bowl with both hands. Huyen sits beside her, using chopsticks to pick a few more stalks of water spinach and add them to her daughter and Appo's bowl, then gently advises Micah to eat while it and Appo's still hot. Mother and daughter sit together enjoying a simple breakfast under the small roof. The morning sunlight filters through the trees in the yard, and the sound of singing birds fills the air, making that peaceful moment feel truly warm. The motorcycle just stopped in front of Huyen and Appo's house gate. The sound of the bike made Pippi, the dog lying outside the porch, gently lift his head and wag his tail happily. He parked the bike neatly beside the bamboo fence, holding a small gift bag in his hand. Huyen and Micah were sitting and eating noodles at a small bamboo table, when suddenly a prolonged cough came over her. She quickly put down her chopsticks, covered her mouth with her hand, and slightly bowed her head due to the continuous coughing. The bowl of noodles in front of her was still hot, but Huyen couldn't and Appo's continue eating. Seeing her like that, Micah put down her bowl, her eyes filled with concern as she looked at Huyen. The girl quickly took a small cloth and handed it to her mother, then gently asked, Mom, are you okay? Huyen tried to smile, patted her daughter and Appo's head and said she was fine, just a little tired. But seeing her pale face and red eyes from coughing, Micah still hugged her mother and Appo's arm with worry. De just stepped into the porch and froze when he heard Huyen and Apo's prolonged cough. He stood by the bamboo wall, silently looking into the house. In front of him was the image of a mother and daughter sitting beside a small bamboo table, a bowl of noodles still steaming. Huyen placed one hand on her chest, trying to hold back her cough, but the coughing continued unabated. Micah sat beside her, worriedly watching her mother, her small hands gently resting on Huyen and Apo's. Seeing her tired appearance, De gently shook his head, his eyes showing clear sorrow. He lightly tightened the gift bag in his hand, standing still for a moment, not wanting to disturb the precious moment between mother and daughter. De stood quietly by the porch for a moment, watching Huyen carry a glass of water to soothe herself. Seeing her cough again, he became even more worried. De gently placed the small gift bag down, then hung it on the hook beside the porch to make it visible to Huyen and Micah. He didn't and Apo's want to ruin the peaceful breakfast for the mother and daughter, so he quietly turned and walked out to the yard. De sat on his motorbike, looked back at the small house one last time and sighed softly. In his heart, he thought about Huyen and Apo's persistent cough, her gaunt appearance, and her constant effort for Micah. De decided to go up the mountain to find medicinal leaves that the villagers still used to brew tea, hoping to help Huyen reduce her cough. The motorbike gradually left the dirt road in front of the house. Behind him, the small house remained peaceful in the morning sunlight, while De carried his worries and hopes as he headed toward the distant mountain. When Huyen and Apo's cough subsided, mother and daughter returned to the bamboo table to continue breakfast. As soon as she sat down, Huyen suddenly saw a small bag of cakes hanging by the porch. She was surprised and approached to pick it up and look. The bag was still new, containing delicious cakes for Micah. Huyen looked around the yard and saw no one there. She quietly guessed that someone had left it silently. Huyen smiled, took the bag and handed it to Micah, saying, and quote, "Someone brought you some cakes." End quote. Micah happily hugged the bag, her eyes shining. But Huyen still felt uneasy in her heart. She quickly stepped out towards the bamboo gate, glancing along the dirt road in front of the house. End quote, "It seems to be Da." End quote. Huyen softly said before running out to look for him. She stood in front of the gate, looking down the empty road, but only saw the trees swaying in the wind. Da and Apo's motorcycle had gone far, leaving only the quiet of the morning. Huyen stood still for a moment, feeling both moved and worried because she knew he was secretly helping the mother and daughter again. Huyen stood in front of the gate watching Da and Apo's shadow gradually disappear, when suddenly a coughing fit struck her. She froze, quickly placing her hand over her chest, and bent down trying to breathe steadily. The sound of her coughs echoing in the air made her face look increasingly tired. Huyen stood outside the gate for a while, then gently went back into the house. She tried to hide her fatigue, fearing Micah might see and become worried. As she stepped in, she saw her daughter still sitting by the bamboo table, holding a small bag of snacks that Da had left. Huyen sat down beside Micah, gently patting her head, then picked up the chopsticks. The mother and daughter continued eating the remaining noodles in the bowl. Micah ate while telling her mother that she would save the remaining snacks for later. Huyen smiled at her daughter, scooping a few more water spinach into Micah's bowl. Despite still feeling tired and occasional coughing fits, she still tried to sit beside her child, enjoying the simple breakfast in their small house. Da rides his motorcycle along a long stretch of road, following the winding dirt path leading toward the mountain in front of him. The morning sunlight shines down on the rows of trees by the roadside, and the sound of the engine echoes through the quiet countryside. When he reaches the foot of the mountain, Da stops his bike beside a large tree, carefully locks it, and takes the small bag he carries. He looks up at the green peak before him, recalling Huyen and Apo's coughs and Micah and Apo's worried expression. Without hesitation, Da follows the trail deeper into the forest. The tall canopy shields the sunlight, and the sounds of forest birds fill the silent space. He walks while observing each bush, searching for medicinal leaves that villagers still pass down, hoping to help Huyen recover and feel better. After finishing her meal, Huyen and Micah went out to the yard together. The mother and daughter brought out the small training bike for Pippi. The three-legged dog happily watched, its eyes brightening when it saw the familiar bike. Micah gently sat down and helped Pippi onto the bike, carefully adjusting each strap to keep the dog steady. The girl slowly pushed the bike forward while encouraging and, quote, "Pippi, keep going just a little further." End quote. Pippi tried to take small steps, the wheelchair gliding lightly over the ground in the yard. Beside them, Huyen sat by the lush green water spinach bed, her hands skillfully picking tender shoots. Occasionally, she looked up at her daughter helping Pippi learn to walk, a gentle smile on her face. That small yard was filled that day with Micah's calls, the soft sounds of the wheelchair, and the peacefulness of a simple morning. After traveling a long, desolate distance, I finally reached the foot of the mountain. I held the bag I carried with me. Standing in front of the trail leading up the mountain, I looked up at the high cliffs covered with green trees. I took a deep breath and then started walking. The rugged rocks made climbing difficult, but I persisted, clinging to every ledge and root to climb higher. Sweat gradually soaked my shirt, and my hands held tightly onto the rocks. My mind was only thinking of Huyen, with her persistent coughs and the hope of finding some medicine to help her get better. In the vast mountain forest I did not stop, continuing to go deeper in search of precious medicinal herbs. In the small garden in front of the house, Huyen was still sitting beside the lush water spinach bed. Her thin hands gently plucked each tender sprout, selecting the freshest and most delicious stems to sell. After harvesting a full basket, Huyen sat down beside the bamboo basket, carefully dividing the vegetables into small bunches. She used soft strings to neatly tie each bunch of water spinach and arranged them neatly to one side. Every bunch of vegetables was carefully cared for by Huyen, as it represented her effort and hope to earn a little extra money to support Micah. Occasionally, Huyen looked up at her daughter playing with Pippi outside, and when she saw Micah happy, she smiled. Despite still feeling tired from coughing, Huyen tried her best to work and take care of their small home. After a long time crossing steep rocky paths, they finally reached a high area on the mountain. Surrounding him were lush green forest canopies, and the sound of the wind blowing through the rocky crevices created a peaceful atmosphere in the mountains. He bent down to examine each bush, searching for the medicinal herbs he had heard villagers mention. After a while, his eyes settled on a herb growing on the side of a rocky slope. He joyfully recognized it as one of the medicines he was looking for. He took a small sickle he carried with him, carefully cut each branch of the herb, and neatly bundled them. He gently placed them into his bag, taking care to keep them safe to bring back to Huyen. Looking at the herbs he had just found, he smiled softly but did not rush to return. He stood up, continued to walk deeper into the forest, following small trails among the rocks to find more medicinal herbs, hoping to help Huyen recover soon. He continued to follow the mountainside, searching for remaining medicinal plants. The path ahead became increasingly steep, with large and small rocks scattered around, making every step very careful. Suddenly, as he stepped onto a small stone, the stone beneath his foot suddenly rolled down the mountainside. Losing balance, he slipped, his body swaying and almost falling down below. In that dangerous moment, he quickly grabbed onto a ledge nearby. And Appo's heart pounded, and he stood still for a few seconds to regain his composure. Looking down at the deep slope below, he couldn't help but shiver, realizing that just a little more carelessness could have caused an accident. He slowly pulled himself up to a flatter spot. He sat down on a large rock, wiping the sweat from his forehead with his hand. His shirt was soaked after the long mountain climb, but he still looked out towards the forest in front of him. Huyen is still sitting by the porch, skillfully tying more bunches of freshly picked water spinach. She carefully arranges each bunch neatly, tying them tightly with small strings so they won't fall apart when taken to the market. Micah sees her mother working and immediately runs over to help. The girl hugs each small bunch of water spinach in her arms, slowly bringing them inside and placing them neatly in a corner. Although the bunches are a bit heavy for her tiny hands, Micah still tries to do it very carefully. Every time she manages to bring a bunch of vegetables inside, she turns around to smile brightly at her mother. Huyen watches her diligent daughter, feeling both tender and warm inside. The small house in the morning may not be valuable, but it is full of laughter and the love between mother and daughter. They continue to cross rugged mountain paths, climbing up another higher mountain. The higher he went, the denser the trees became, and the moss-covered cliffs stretched out before him. Although his legs were exhausted, he persisted in searching for each type of medicinal plant. After some observation, they discovered more medicinal bushes growing among the rocks. He happily bent down, carefully using a small sickle to harvest each plant, selecting the best parts and neatly bundling them. He gradually placed all of them into his bag. Upon checking again, they found that the medicinal herbs he was looking for were almost complete. He looked at the bag of herbs in his hand and let out a gentle sigh of relief. Thinking of Huyen waiting at home, he quickly packed up his belongings and began descending the mountain path. He hugged the bag containing the medicinal herbs he had just found, following the trail across the mountain forest. The tall trees blocked out the sunlight, and the rustling leaves blended with the sound of his footsteps in the quiet space. Passing by a large rocky cave on the mountainside, he stopped to look inside. After a long climb, his legs were starting to tire, and sweat soaked through his shirt. He decided to crawl into the cave to rest for a while. He sat down on a flat rock inside the cave, placed the herb bag beside him, and wiped the sweat from his forehead. He felt his throat dry and sore. He opened the small bag beside him and took out a water bottle he carried. He unscrewed the cap and sipped the water slowly. The cool water helped to regain strength after the exhausting mountain climb. He looked toward the cave entrance, where sunlight was shining through the trees, then back at the herb bag beside him. He sighed softly, still remembering Huyen and Micah in the small house. Huyen went back into the house, gently carrying the bunches of water spinach that Micah had just helped her mother bring in earlier. She carefully arranged each bunch neatly into a large bamboo basket, preparing to take them to the market to sell. After finishing, Huyen went to Pippi and Appo's side. She gently removed the small walker from the dog and Appo's neck, stroked Pippi and Appo's fur and softly said, and quote, "Pippi, stay good at home. Huyen and Appo's mom will be back soon." End quote. Pippi lay on the porch, eyes watching Huyen as if understanding her words. Micah stood nearby and also bent down to pat Pippi and Appo's head, smiling at the little dog. Then Huyen grabbed the bamboo broom and swept the yard. She swept away the fallen dry leaves in front of the porch, tidying up the small yard around the house. Under the morning sunlight, the simple bamboo house looked neater and cleaner, ready for a new day for mother and daughter. He carried the medicine bag on his shoulder, stepped out of the cave, and continued along the forest path to return home. His footsteps crossed the dry leaves, passed through tall trees, and wound along the mountain road. After a while, he reached a wide river flowing across the forest. He found a small boat on the shore, gently stepped into it, and used the oar to row to the other side. The water flowed quietly, and the sound of the oar lightly echoed in the peaceful space. When the boat reached the shore, he stepped out, pulled the boat close to the bank, and carefully tied it to a tree to prevent it from being swept away by the current. He carried the bag filled with medicinal herbs, quickly headed toward the motorcycle. He unlocked it, placed the medicine bag on the bike, and started the engine. The engine and Appo's roar echoed through the quiet forest. He turned the bike around, rode along the dirt road out of the forest, carrying the medicinal herbs he had arduously collected to reunite with Huyen and Micah. Huyen stepped out in front of the house, carefully checked everything, and then locked the small bamboo door. She carried a bamboo basket full of bunches of water spinach on her shoulder, adjusting the strap to make it secure. Micah stood beside her, waiting for her mother, holding Huyen and Appo's hand with her small hand. Huyen looked back at the small house one more time, seeing Pippi lying peacefully by the porch. She smiled and reminded the little dog to stay well-behaved at home, then took Micah and Appo's hand and left together. Mother and daughter followed the familiar dirt road leading to the market. Huyen walked slowly, carrying a heavy vegetable basket on her shoulder, while Micah chatted with her mother as they walked. The midday sun stretched across the field, and the trees along the road gently swayed in the wind. The road to the market was still far, but mother and daughter still held hands, carrying the bunches of vegetables they had grown themselves, hoping to sell a little money to make ends meet. After a long journey back, and Appo's motorcycle finally stopped in front of Huyen and Appo's bamboo gate. He turned off the engine, parked the bike neatly to the side, and looked at the familiar small house. Still feeling a bit tired from the mountain trip, De carried the medicine bag he had just found and stepped through the gate. He gently entered the yard, placing his feet on the familiar ground, his eyes searching for Huyen and Micah. The house was quieter than usual at this moment. De gently clenched the medicine bag in his hand, hoping that the herbs he painstakingly found would help Huyen reduce her persistent cough. De entered the yard and saw Pippi lying peacefully by the porch. He sat down and gently stroked the small dog and Appo's fur. Pippi wagged his tail softly, his eyes looking at De as if recognizing a familiar person. De smiled, patted Pippi and Appo's head and then stood up to go into the kitchen. He took the old aluminum kettle from the shelf, washed it carefully, bit by bit. Afterwards, De scooped water from the large jar, filled the kettle, and placed it on the wood stove. He took a lighter from his pocket, sat down beside the stove and lit the fire. The dry logs quickly caught fire, and the flickering flames radiated warmth in the small kitchen. Huyen and Micah walked a long distance and finally arrived at the familiar market area. Amidst the busy crowd, Huyen looked for an empty space in the corner of the market and gently placed her bamboo basket filled with water spinach down. She sat down, opened each bunch of vegetables and neatly arranged them, the tender green stems still slightly dewy from the early morning, catching the attention of passers-by. Micah sat beside her, helping her adjust the small bunches of vegetables, her eyes focused on the flow of people in the market. Before long, customers began to arrive. Some stopped to choose fresh bunches, others asked for the price and bought a few to take home. Huyen cheerfully responded, her hands skillfully weighing the vegetables and receiving money from customers. Micah sat next to her watching her mother sell, occasionally helping by handing vegetables to customers. Amidst the bustling market, mother and daughter tried to sell all the bunches of vegetables they had carefully cared for, hoping to earn a little extra money for their livelihood. I opened the medicine bag beside the stove, gently taking out each herb. I carefully select a little of each type and place them on the old wooden cutting board in the small kitchen. I hold the knife and cut each herb into smaller pieces to help release their properties during cooking. Every movement is slow and careful, because I know these are the things I have struggled to find after crossing mountains and forests. After cutting, I take the herbs out and rinse them under water. I gently wash away the dirt and sand from each leaf, then let them drain. At this moment, the pot of water on the stove has started boiling, with steam rising thickly. I carry the cleaned herbs back to the stove, open the lid of the teapot, and drop in each handful of herbs. The mild aroma of the herbs gradually fills the small kitchen. I sit down by the stove, add a few more sticks of firewood to the fire, and quietly wait for the herbal decoction to finish so I can bring it to Huyen. De looked at the remaining medicine in the bag placed beside him, then carefully took out each bundle. He placed them on the old wooden cutting board in the kitchen, his hands still bearing the marks of a long mountain journey. He used a knife to chop each remaining portion of medicine into manageable pieces for easier storage and future use. The sound of the knife hitting the board echoed steadily in the small kitchen. De cherished each herb because he remembered the journey through dense forests and climbing treacherous cliffs to obtain them. After chopping, he neatly gathered the medicine and placed it aside. De took out the old bamboo tray from the kitchen, gently gathered all the chopped medicines and placed them on top. He carefully put the medicines into the tray, making sure not to miss any branches. Then, De used his rough hands to evenly spread the pieces of medicine across the surface of the tray. The segments of leaves and stems of the medicinal plants lay neatly on the woven bamboo base. He sat beside the tray, slowly checking each type of medicine once again. De and Apo's eyes were full of carefulness because he knew these things represented his heartfelt care for Huyen. In the small kitchen, the crackling of burning firewood echoed. The medicine pot on the stove emitted warmth, and the bamboo tray filled with medicine sat beside it. A peaceful afternoon passed quietly with the silent concern that De dedicated to the mother and child. The last bunches of water spinach were finally sold out. Huyen carefully counted the money she had just earned, then placed the empty bamboo basket on her shoulder. She held Micah and Apo's small hand, and the mother and daughter walked through the crowded stalls in the market. Passing by the fish stall, Huyen stopped. She looked at the fresh fish, thought for a moment, then selected a few suitable for their meal. The fish seller wrapped the fish. Huyen took the money from her pocket to pay, softly thanked her, and received the bag of fish. Micah stood beside her, happily hugging the small bag to help her carry it. Huyen smiled, patted her daughter's head, then took Micah's hand again. The mother and daughter left the market area, following their familiar path home. The bamboo basket on Huyen's shoulder was now lighter, but her heart was still worried about her lingering cough. Nevertheless, Micah's small hand held her mother's tightly as they walked together along the peaceful countryside road. I carry the bamboo tray filled with chopped medicinal leaves out to the garden to dry for Huyen to use later. The afternoon sunlight shines down on the small yard, and a gentle breeze makes the tree branches sway. I look around for a moment and then choose an empty spot, where the sunlight hits the most but is still clean and dry. I gently place the bamboo tray on the ground, carefully straighten it. The green medicinal leaves are evenly spread on the tray and Apo's surface, with each small stem gradually drying under the sun. I lightly turn them a few times to ensure even drying and prevent moisture. Standing and looking at the medicinal herbs I painstakingly found in the mountains, I breathe a sigh of relief. I only hope that when Huyen uses these, her coughs will lessen and she will be healthier to take care of Micah. De from outside the garden stepped back into the kitchen. He went to the wood stove, gently opened the lid of the teapot placed on the stove to check. The steam from the medicinal tea rose thickly, and the aroma of wild herbs spread throughout the small kitchen. De looked at the color of the tea, which had darkened, knowing that the decoction had been simmered long enough. He carefully used a cloth to lift the teapot off the stove, then poured the hot tea into a small bowl. The tea was still hot, with a faint wisp of steam rising from the bowl and Apo's rim. De placed the bowl of tea on the bamboo table in the middle of the house, so that Huyen could drink it immediately when she returned. Then he returned to the stove, using a stick to poke out some of the large flames, leaving only a small, smoldering fire to keep warm. De placed the teapot back on the stove. The small kitchen became warm with the red glow of the fire, and the faint scent of medicinal herbs. De silently did everything, only hoping that when Huyen returned, she would see the care he had for her. De sat beside the bamboo table, waiting for a long time but still did not see Huyen and Micah return. Outside, only the sound of the wind blowing through the trees and Pippi lying on the porch gently moving could be heard. He looked at the bowl of medicine still warm on the table, fearing that if left too long, the medicine would cool down. De took a small plate, gently placed it over the mouth of the bowl to keep the heat, so Huyen could drink it immediately when she returned. Then De went back to the corner of the kitchen, took a small piece of leftover charcoal. He sat down beside the bamboo table, took a piece of white paper, placed it in front of him, and carefully wrote each line with a piece of charcoal. He wrote a message for Huyen. I have finished boiling the medicine. Remember to drink it while it and Apo's still warm when you come back. The medicine is on the table. I have some errands to run. Take care of your health. After finishing, De looked at the paper once more and gently placed it next to the bowl of medicine. He looked around the small house, seeing everything was prepared, and felt more at ease. De stepped out into the garden. The sunlight gradually softened after a long day. He saw Pippi lying by the porch, its small eyes looking towards him. He sat down beside it, gently stroking its fur. He patted the little dog and Apo's head, smiling softly as a farewell, and quote, "Be good at home, Pippi. Wait for Huyen and Apo's mom to come back," end quote. Pippi wagged its tail gently and lay quietly beside him. De looked at the little dog for a moment, then gently picked up Pippi and brought it inside, placing it in its familiar spot to avoid the sun and wind outside. He turned back to look at the small house once more. The herbal medicine bowl on the bamboo table, the medicine tray outside in the garden, and the note he left had all been carefully prepared. De gently stroked Pippi and Apo's head one last time and softly said, end quote, "Goodbye," end quote. Then he quietly stepped out of the house, gently closed the bamboo door and left. De and Apo's figure gradually disappeared down the dirt road, leaving the peaceful little house and the silent care he had for Huyen and Micah. After a long journey from the market back home, Huyen and Micah finally saw the familiar small house. Mother and daughter walked slowly along the dirt road, still holding hands tightly. Huyen opened the bamboo door and stepped inside. As soon as she entered, Micah suddenly saw something neatly placed on the bamboo table. Curious, she ran over. Micah saw a plate upside down on a bowl, then gently lifted the plate with both hands. A faint warmth from the medicine bowl still lingered, surprising her. End quote, "Mom, come here and see this," end quote. Micah called out loudly. Huyen, who was setting down her bamboo basket, quickly turned around. Hearing her daughter and Apo's call, she hurried to the bamboo table. Huyen and Apo's eyes stopped at the warm medicine bowl and the small piece of paper placed beside it. Huyen gently picked up the piece of paper placed on the bamboo table. She carefully read each line written with charcoal. It was a message from Da, reminding her to take the medicine while still warm and to take care of her health. Huyen stood silently for a moment. She softly clenched the paper in her hand, her eyes reddening with emotion at Da and Apo's silent concern. Micah stood beside her, looking up at her mother and then at the bowl of medicine still emitting warmth. Huyen folded the paper very carefully, placed it on the bamboo table, and then slowly went to the kitchen. She opened the lid of the teapot on the wood stove. Inside, there was still some medicine, the heat still faintly rising from the small flame that Da had skillfully kept alive before leaving. Looking at the teapot, Huyen gently touched the handle and quietly smiled. She knew Da had put a lot of effort into climbing the mountain to find and brew the medicine. Standing in the small kitchen, Huyen gently placed her hand on her chest. The coughing still seemed to persist, but her heart was warmer now thanks to the sincere care Da had for both mother and child. Huyen took the small bamboo chair and placed it in front of the porch, then sat down slowly. She held the bowl of medicine that Da had carefully prepared, lifting it with both hands, the thin wisps of smoke still drifting lazily in the air. She gently blew a few times and then sipped the medicine. The bitter taste of the wild herbs spread across her tongue, but Huyen quietly finished drinking. Deep inside, she understood that each sip of medicine was the result of Da and Apo's effort after a tiring journey over mountains and through forests to find each herb. Lost in thought, a sudden cough overtook her. End quote. "Ha, ha, ha," end quote. Huyen quickly placed one hand over her chest, bending over due to the continuous coughing fits. Her face was pale, and her breathing became labored. She tried to take a deep breath and gradually calm down. After drinking, Huyen placed the bowl on the small bamboo table beside the porch. She sat quietly, her eyes directed toward the dirt road in front of the house, where De had quietly left some time ago. A gentle breeze blew through the garden, causing the water spinach beds to sway slightly. Pippi lay obediently at Huyen and Apo's feet, while Micah sat nearby with the bag of snacks that De had left. Huyen reached out and took the note, smiling softly before gazing into the distance. In her eyes was gratitude, mixed with wandering thoughts. In the peaceful small house, she silently wished that one day she could thank De for all the silent things he had done for her and her child. Huyen carried the bamboo basket and stepped out into the small garden in front of the house. She bent down to pick each lush green vegetable in preparation for the meal. As she was walking through the garden, Huyen suddenly stopped, her gaze fixed on the bamboo tray placed in the sunny yard. On the tray were medicinal herbs carefully chopped and spread out to dry. Huyen stood silently for a moment. She gently reached out to touch the herbs, recalling the arduous journey De had taken to find each medicinal plant for her. A tender smile appeared on her face. Then, Huyen continued to pick vegetables to fill the bamboo basket. After finishing, she held the basket in one arm, carefully carrying the tray of herbs with her other hand. She slowly brought the tray inside the house, placing it in a dry, clean spot for storage. Huyen looked at the herbs once more and then softly smiled, silently grateful for the quiet care that De had given to both mother and daughter. Huyen carefully put the basket of medicine inside the house, then rolled up her sleeves and entered the small kitchen. She lit the wood stove, and the flickering flames quickly made the kitchen warm. Huyen took a bunch of water spinach freshly picked from the garden and washed it thoroughly. When the water boiled, she gently added the vegetables to boil, stirring with chopsticks until they turned bright green, then took them out onto a plate. Next, Huyen took out the bag of fish she just bought at the market and cleaned it. She placed a pan on the stove, added a little cooking oil. Once the oil was hot, Huyen gently dropped each fish into the pan to fry. The sizzling sound of the fish and the fragrant aroma filled the small kitchen. Micah sat on a bamboo chair near the stove, obediently watching her mother cook. Pippi was also lying on the porch, occasionally lifting her head to look into the kitchen as if waiting for the meal. Soon after, the plate of bright green boiled water spinach and the plate of crispy fried fish were ready and arranged. She looked at the simple meal and smiled, hoping that this warm family dinner would help the mother and daughter gain more strength after a long day. As night gradually falls, Huyen and Apo's small house lights up with warm illumination. On the simple bamboo table, dinner has been prepared with a plate of vibrant boiled water spinach and a few fragrant fried fish. Huyen sits beside Micah, gently feeding her. The mother and daughter eat while sharing small stories of the day. Micah happily eats each bite of rice, occasionally smiling brightly at her mother. The meal dozen and Apo's tea have many delicacies, but for Huyen, it is a full meal of peace and love. After a long day of work, sitting with her daughter in the small house is the simplest happiness. Outside the porch, Pippi lies obediently beside the bamboo bed. The gentle night breeze blows through the garden, and the house and Apo's lights flicker softly, casting shadows of the mother and daughter. A long tiring day ends, leaving a peaceful night in Huyen and Micah and Apo's small house. If everyone loves Huyen and Micah and Apo's mother, please subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a word of encouragement for the two of them to see the next developments. Every follow and every loving comment from everyone will be a source of comfort and strength to help Huyen get through difficult times. Thank you all very much.